Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on fraud prevention. My name is Marilyn Wagner, and I am the Chief Experience Officer of the Credit Union. Now, we had about 150 people register for this webinar. So what does that tell me? That fraud is rampant and that we need to make sure that we protect ourselves as much as possible. They're getting very savvy, they're getting very intuitive, and they're making sure that they trick us or make us believe that there's some kind of rush to get the information that they need or you're in some kind of trouble. So I want to encourage people that if you feel like you're being frauded or you feel like there's something that's just not right, call us. No one should ever be embarrassed or be hesitant because we are here to help you and make sure that your money is safe, sound, and secure. Now, a couple of housekeeping items. This webinar is recorded. So after this event, you will receive an email in a couple hours, maybe 3-4 hours, that will have a link to the webinar so you could share it with your family members. You can review it. So make sure that you have all the information that you need. Additionally, there's a Q&A section. We're going to go through the webinar, put your questions in the Q&A, and we will try and take as many as possible at the end of the event. Now, I'm very honored and very proud to welcome Nicole Reyes as our presenter. She is the Vice President of Risk Management at Velera and is an experienced fraud prevention leader with a demonstrated history of working and consulting with clients in the financial services industry. Her skills as a financial professional include fraud detection, fraud prevention, leadership, payments, fraud investigations, mass communications, and business relationship management. So she is definitely a subject matter expert in the area. Nicole, I am very happy to welcome you to the stage to take us through your presentation. Thank you, everyone, and I'll be back at the end of the event.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. I'm very excited to be here to talk to you guys today about scams. One, how to protect yourself, how to identify them, and then just how to recognize if it happens to you or a friend in the future. And thank you so much to IDB Global for having us in this event today. Today, I'm here to talk to you about stay one step ahead, detect and avoid financial scams. Let's dive a little further into some of the industry's deepest fraud trends. As Marilyn set the stage, fraud is on the rise. And for those of you that maybe have been familiar with fraud or have unfortunately had fraud happen to you, what I want to talk to you guys today about is just the sophistication and the changing landscape, the evolution of fraud in maybe some old and new tactics that are being exploited to weaponize and go after all of us as consumers. A look back quickly shows us that 2024 had the largest transfer of wealth of scammers in history. $1 trillion in wealth was transferred to criminals over various schemes and scams in 2024. It's estimated that 50% of the population receives scams once a week. I don't know about you, but I think that's just what they have reported because I myself receive multiple scams and scam attempts in various ways regularly. Some of the top scams reported in 2024, and again, this was into the Federal Trade Commission, so it is based on the most common types reported by consumers. Imposter scams was the largest impact, taking $2.67 billion in revenue to the criminals or the fraudsters. An imposter scam, if you're not familiar, is a scam in which the fraudsters are pretending to be somebody, typically a company or a financial institution, an organization that the consumer works with. Oftentimes a financial institution like their own credit union or their community banks that they might work with. It can also be a utility company, an insurance company, or other organizations that, again, they know and have a little insight into that the consumer either has done business with or is interested in doing business with, has some kind of need. The second most common scam is online shopping and negative reviews. But the impact, as you can see, at 392 million isn't quite as significant as the problem that is being exploited based on imposter scams. And I'll talk a little bit more about why that's prevalent. Fraud affects every generation differently. And in 2004, it showed no greater transfer of wealth, single transfer of wealth than to people under the age of 21 or Gen Z millennial or Gen Z, excuse me, the generation. While you can see the true dollar amount of impact was lowest in this category, typically, or that really represents that typically these individuals have less money or less available credit to spend. However, based on just the sheer number of attempts or the count of attempts, this generation has been significantly impacted. A lot of the reason due to that is because of the shift to digitalization. As we all move to online spending, whether that's purchases or communication through social media platforms, the younger generations are sharing more and growing up in this digital environment. And so they're used to conducting a lot of various transactions online. And so they can be most susceptible to certainly investment scams, as you can see every generation practically is, but also those online shopping, the fake product scams, or even looking for a job, creating a new job that's a work from home opportunity that seems too good to be true, has unfortunately become one of the top scams for the younger generations. Millennials are dealing with imposter scams as well as investments, but they're also coming to the point where they're again being targeted based on a certain need or based on something that's relevant in their life, which oftentimes is student loan scams. So they may be coming up on paying off their student loans, coming out of deferment, and so they often get targeted with scams of that nature. Or older generations, you're still seeing a lot of the scams that are impacting and have been impacting a lot of us for years, the romance scams, the things like that. There's still that Nigerian prince out there that is looking for you to send him some money. But there's also various changes that have happened to that platform or to that scheme. Again, often related to the increase in our digital environment and going online to often look for, relationships and love. I want to talk to you about some of the impacts that fraudsters monetize. So, why are they going after information and what do they do with the money after they take it? From a card not present perspective, which is the CMP category that I'm talking about today, some of the top impacts are really based on the way that they're transacting or making purchases with your stolen funds. Non-secured online shopping, and this is really your traditional online shopping methods, using stolen card details and card testing. Also, a form of triangulation fraud occurs in this category. And what triangulation fraud is, if you're not familiar, is it's really that fraudster creating and intercepting a situation, whether that be creating a new merchant or intercepting the POS system or the point of sale system or the credentials of an existing merchant. And again, taking either stolen goods that they have stolen from a real merchant or creating a new merchant platform with stolen goods to sell, and then intercepting your funds also as stolen goods for buying or as stolen for buying stolen monetary goods from them. The fraud projected in just traditional online attempts is over $200 billion globally by the end of 2025. So this is a really significant impact. If any of you guys have received maybe phone calls, text messages, emails, asking you to validate a potential suspicious activity, this is why your banks and your credit unions are looking to protect you. Faster payments, this would be like your Zelle, your Cash Apps, your PayPals, or your Venmos, are another way to conduct transactions in a card not present like environment. So card not present, meaning simply that you don't have to have the physical plastic in a true brick and mortar location. Authorized push payments, which are some of the merchants that I just mentioned, are projected to reach $3 billion in fraudulent impact by 2028. And a lot of what makes this significant is really social engineering and account compromises. We have a saying in the fraud industry, the faster the funds, the faster the fraud. And so fraudsters are going to go one to the path of least resistance, which may look like true cardholder spending. So of course, they're going to go to some of the top merchants that all of us transact at each and every day. But they're also going to go for the funds that they can get their hands on the quickest. So in some of these instances with the different P2P platforms or person-to-person platforms, that makes this accessible in a almost near real-time environment to receive funds like cash. Mobile wallet, which is your digital wallet that you may have on your smartphones, your Apple Pays, your Google Pays, Samsung Pays, things like that. That is also a significant impact from a card not present perspective. There's a scenario going on that makes this significant called ghost tapping attacks. A ghost tapping attack is where a fraudster will leverage malware to clone a mobilized token transaction. So they don't physically have to make the transaction with a digital wallet and interact with a valid merchant. They can intercept and clone that there is a mobile wallet functionality on their device in order to get the transaction approved. Google Pay, for example, experienced a mobile wallet fraud increase of 153% in 2024, excuse me. And then 3DS, which is secure digital protocol. This is online transactions that go through an additional layer that both the credit union issuer and the merchant acquirer have engaged in. Where this is becoming prevalent from a fraud perspective and how fraudsters are using it to monetize is, again, these man-in-the-middle attacks. Similar to a triangulation attack, intercepting criteria instead of maybe from the merchant in this instance, from you as the consumer, as the cardholder. So one tactic you may or may not be familiar with is reaching out. The fraudsters will obtain information. They will reach out to you via various methods, whether it's a phone call, an email, or a text message. And they will say, hey, in order to engage with you so that you feel safe and secure, we want to send you a one-time passcode, or what we call an OTP. If I send you this one-time passcode, can you please provide that code or that value back to me? And then you'll know that I am who I say I am. Maybe in this instance that I am from your credit union or I am from your electrical company. And so they're exploiting these actual authentication techniques in order to not only bypass them, but again, to get you, the cardholder, to feel safe about that interaction. So prying on our human traits, as Marilyn talked about at the beginning. So a couple scam types and techniques. So how exactly are the fraudsters doing this? I walked through a couple scenarios, but I want to talk about just the different buckets of techniques that we see when it comes to a scam attempt. Again, some of these are newer tactics and some of them are just variations of old tried and true methods. Account takeover, or what we call ATO, continues to be a high risk in 2025. And a lot of this is due to artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence has caused a surge of what we call ATO, account takeover activities, by 81% since 2019. And so account takeover, similar to the name, is really where the fraudster is intercepting your account and then acting as on behalf of you. So they may be calling into your financial institution to check a balance, to ship a new plastic, to change a phone number, or maybe even just inquire about activity on the card so that they can call in later or they can use that information downstream. Sophisticated social engineering is influencing us as the consumers to reveal our personal identifiable information, such as mother's maiden name, social security number, with tactics such as phishing and vishing. And I'll get a little bit more into those. But phishing as a service, or fraud as a service, is also becoming more prevalent. And again, the availability of phishing kits has democratized criminal activity. I provided a resource here just as an example. CUNA is the Credit Union National Association. And so they have a lot of great resources from not only a financial institution perspective, but from a consumer perspective. So again, fraudsters don't necessarily even have to go through the actions of building a scam scenario, creating a phishing attempt, and executing on that. They can simply buy kits or buy a service so that others will do that on their behalf. Multi-layer fraud approach, or what we call MFA, is really key preventative measures that your institutions are using to protect you on your behalf. An example of MFA would be similar to what we talked about in a previous slide, that one-time password, or maybe asking a second level of identity questions. Many of you may have also had a situation where you're being validated on your smartphone or on your computer, and they say, hey, click these 3 boxes where there is a street sign visible, or click on this box to say, I am not a robot. All of those are different levels of multi-factor authentications. To further illustrate the significance, or what we're talking about when we talk about ATO scenarios, I want to walk you through a fraud life cycle scenario. Oftentimes, people will ask me, how did my account get compromised? How did my information get identified in the first place? And a lot of times it can be through phishing attempts and other tactics that I'll go through. Other times, there's a lot of information that's available on the dark web, whether it's through various data breaches that have occurred in the past, and other scenarios. And so oftentimes the fraudsters, when they're really reaching out to you, they have a little bit of information, but they're reaching out to you to get those missing pieces of the puzzle. Sometimes they may have specific credentials, or at least identifiable information that they've purchased from the dark web, such as your phone number or your email address. And that's their initial way to get in contact with you. So in this scenario, user credentials were purchased on the dark web. There was an attempt to authenticate, so they reached out to the consumer, and as I talked about, used that OTP tactic to try to get the user to trust them in this transaction or in this engagement. Once they got that OTP successful password, they were able to then tokenize that activity. What that OTP truly ended up being was your token mobile provisioning. So as you go into, if you guys have not yet adapted or have used the service to use or to enable a digital wallet, there's a tokenization process that you'll go through. And so Apple, Google, and the like, they will send you a code. And that, again, is one of their ways of MFA to authenticate that the user installing this on their device is their device. And so that OTP is one of the codes or the keys to the kingdom, if you will, that the criminals need to then enable a mobile wallet. And so then they successfully will download the mobile wallet on their own device and commit large scale fraud transactions that are tied back to your debit or credit card. They may attempt during any time of this transaction to log into your online banking. Again, it depends on the amount of information that they have, that they've either purchased or they've been able to gather about you. If they have access to your online banking credentials, or if you use the same username and password for multiple applications, that does increase the likeliness of this. They may attempt to log into your online banking to, again, maybe just gather further information, such as how many accounts you have, what your available limit is, or they may even try to conduct transfers, so move money from your savings account into your checking account, so that they then can, again, monetize in a fraudulent manner transactions on your credit or debit card. They may also place a test transaction, so a much smaller testing transaction that you may never see on your online banking or on your statement because it doesn't post. But they're doing little small tests to reach out and see if, again, what the available credit may be. So if I run a test for $1 or $5 on this account and it comes through as approved, then at least I know that I have a valid account. And so now I might go for a larger scale transaction. They may also be testing the card so that they can proactively place the account in a suspend strategy, which is a common standard fashion that occurs when you do get those calls or those texts that I mentioned earlier, where your legitimate financial institution is trying to validate activity with you. Oftentimes, if it is you, the consumer, you say, yes, that is my charge, that's valid. They'll then put you in a temporary cool off period. Some other tactics that are used to commit scams, and one of the biggest ones is social engineering. And so again, social engineering is a manipulation technique that exploits human psychology to gain access to confidential information. And this is specifically within social media platforms or social interactions. The most common form of social engineering scams is phishing, or what I like to call their ING friends. So phishing, vishing, smishing are all different various forms of being able to send large amounts of attempts to individual consumers to try to get successful hits, meaning to try to get valid engagements or responses back. Phishing is email form. So these are fake emails that are sent. Again, you may have seen some of these. I'll go through an example further on in the presentation as well. But there are 3.4 billion emails that are sent globally each and every day. That's an astonishing number. And while you think about it, a lot of these are used by algorithms or by automated bots. And so really the fraudsters or the criminals oftentimes are only having to execute the click of one button to cascade out this many attempts. So if they only get 50 to 100, 500 attempts back that are valid, that's still all good success from their perspective in a day's work when you simply just had to hit the button and let the computer do the work for you. 98% of total cyber attacks are due to social engineering. And again, that is just simply because of the amount or the rate that we conduct ourselves socially in a digital environment. A couple other of the most common forms are listed here as well. So what's a social engineering attack cycle? Again, how do they go after you as the consumer, and how do they prey on our psychologies and our vulnerabilities, and how do they make it successful if I know as a consumer not to click on the link. My financial institution, my credit unions have told me multiple times not to click on links. And so how is this successful? Or maybe if you personally have been a victim of a scam, you may be thinking, how did they get me? And I'll take you through some of these steps in the cycle. So fraudsters are nothing if not patient. They will take the time because, again, the return on investment is high for them. There's a large reward, and they do it at such an astonishing rate for the number of victims that they have that, again, once they identify a method and they get good at it, they can replicate it at scale. But they'll start by preparing. So really focused on, how are we going to engage this victim? First of all, what victim are we going to engage? Am I going to identify their information by a dark web? Do I already have their information because, I found their plastic on the street? I mean, sometimes that is even as simple as it happens. Now, that would be a smaller scale, probably targeting one individual. But again, any way to test the methods, they will take advantage of. But really identifying the victim, once they identify the victim, they may gather some background information. So again, some additional information, maybe they have your email address, but now they want to try to hack into your email via different malicious malware codes, because they want to identify what type of businesses do you engage with, what are your interests on social media platforms. Because if they came to me and wanted to create maybe a rodeo scam, that might not necessarily be something that I'm interested in or that I would fall for. But if they did something that I have either Google searched online or that I've shown interest in by my likes on Facebook or Instagram, various ways, they really try to target the attack to make it seem more believable. Then they'll go after the interaction. So this is where they're going to deceive you and to gain information, to gain your trust. They may just start having a conversation with you. They may simply send you a direct message. They may friend request you. And then they start to, again, depending on how deep and how much time they have in this specific scheme, really start to create that investment in your psychology. So really ultimately trying to gain the trust in various ways that we've talked about so that they get you to kind of let your guards down. Then they will exploit. So this is where they execute the attack, whether it is a mobile wallet scenario that we talked about earlier, or going through your online banking profile, maybe transferring some funds, doing a balance transfer from one financial institution to another. This is where they're going to execute whatever it is that is their intention for their monetary gain. Oftentimes it's financial transactions directly. Then they will retreat. And so then they're going to close the interaction, most often cover their tracks as well, because ideally they want to do this entire scenario without arousing suspicion, because that way, if it worked successfully for you and 5 of your friends, they can now cascade this same scenario out with small to minimum to any tweaks and successfully commit this same crime again and again. Some engagement tactics I want to walk you guys through so that you're aware of what to look for if you have not had an instance occur like this before. So again, focused on that human psychology, right? And really preying on our human nature. They'll go after typically about 4 successful tactics. The first one is distress. So that sense of urgency, as Marilyn talked about at the beginning, they're really going to try to get you off your game, try to make you think about, I need to take action on this now. I need to act before I think. And so it may be something similar to this US bank example. This is a fraud alert. They use these type of verbiage or these phrases to really generate that type of icky feeling that we all get inside when there's something urgent and potentially wrong in the situation. So you want to, again, look at your bank account, take action very quickly. Reward. They'll also try to entice you. And this is some of like what I was talking about when I showed the generation slide. They want to entice you with maybe an online situation that seems too good to be true, but maybe it's not. It typically always is. But they may reward you. You know, we want you to participate in a survey. We want you to take this quiz and you'll get $5. We want you to submit this review and we will, you know, give you a reward back. Also, curiosity. So there's a recently has been one going around with the US Postal Service, as again, we all are doing a lot more digital spending. And so that does equate to then receiving packages and items at our door or, you know, our work location and shipping them to friends, things like that. So curiosity, really saying, you know, hey, we have a package for you. Somebody's trying to send you something. Don't you want to see what it is? And then lastly, familiarity. So this is where, again, in the cycles, they're going to do a lot of that prep work because they want to make it familiar to you. They want to either seem like they're a friend or a family member, or that they're from an organization that you would do business with. I wanted to share this live, a real life phishing example as well, just to, again, further illustrate some of the red flags or some of the items to be aware of so that the next time you get a suspicious email or you get in any kind of correspondence from somebody that you don't recognize, maybe you will think back on this testimonial and some of the examples I shared today. So this user says, I received 10 emails in a matter of seconds that were all like the ones below, or here to you, it would be on your right, but with different requester names. As a consumer, I knew not to click on the link, but they also provided a phone number to call them instead, which I thought was very courteous and efficient of them to offer. But guess what? That's not Venmo's true number. So in this instance, this user received, as she said, 10 different emails with various names. So in this one, it was Jesse G. Ramirez. Other ones, I believe it was the same naming format, you know, first name, middle initial, last name, and saying that they request money. So again, as you know, this average consumer recognized not to click on links, to just click on that blue button to pay Jesse. But it says, you know, if you did not make this transaction. So again, this is the fraudster or the criminal's way of trying to relate to you, right? And what you may or may not know and gather that sense of trust or loyalty. If you did not make this transaction, please call us at this number. This lady did have a Venmo account. She did interact with Venmo on a regular basis. And so she thought about calling this number. Instead, she just stopped and decided to engage with Venmo in the way that she traditionally did. And that's when she identified that this was a scam. So she was able to reset her password and take some other actions before any money actually left her account. And artificial intelligence, or AI, continues to be a rising threat for fraud in 2025. A lot of these tactics are becoming so prevalent or because of getting more sophisticated. So the rise of AI has enabled what I like to call DIY fraudsters, the do-it-yourself fraudsters. Any novice that does not have a strong technology background like myself can now go out to the internet and identify or develop research ways to commit fraud. Some of the ways are by writing code or creating malicious malware. different channels such as Chat GPT or Fraud GPT, which are really just chat bots and interacting in that manner, can allow you to develop natural language emails that maybe don't have the red flags that we are used to looking at or have been communicated against. There's three different major types of artificial intelligence that I always like to call out as well, because AI is such a buzzword in various ways in today's landscape. And so whether you're talking about payments or security, whether you're talking about just for fun, using AI to create a picture, make you look like a cowgirl, anything like that. There's different ways or different layers of artificial intelligence. So I talked about Chat GPT and really being the chat bots. There's also machine learning. So machine learning has been around for ages. AI has been a form of, identifying suspicious transactions, especially in the fraud environment, for a long time. But again, from the sophistication or the evolution, how they're using machine learning now are really from brute force attacks, or what you may have heard of as bin attacks. So a brute force attack is using an algorithm or using machine learning to do something at scale. As we were talking about those trends a little bit earlier, this is where, they may click one button and cascade out 1,000 attempts to get, a couple successful hits. With the layered use of robotics to execute these, it really makes them very fast and efficient. And again, they can switch their agility very quickly if they develop that they have been identified, or if they start to get many declines and recognize that maybe this isn't a successful scheme. And then there's generative AI or generation AI. And this is really a technique that isn't just for analyzing or recognizing patterns, but it also can categorize existing data and create unique outputs. So this is where you get things like, unfortunately, from a fraud perspective, deep fake videos or AI generated pictures, Facebook Reels, for example, things like that. And so through various uses of AI, the sophistication has really blurred the line between knowing, should I react to this, or should I take action on this, or should I not? A couple examples that I'll walk through is the phishing prior to artificial intelligence. So this example here is a very generic phishing email. There's grammatical spelling errors. There's a mismatched dialect. From a voice perspective, if it was a phishing email that was occurring over the phone, a vishing attempt, there may be shuffling of papers in the background. And so those were all just traditional ways of phishing or going after the member. Now, phishing with AI has certainly taken a different turn. There are now real-time deep faked voice. In fact, the latest study is they only need now 3 seconds of your actual voice to be able to clone it. So, we are seeing attempts of vishing where they are even simply just calling you to get you to answer the phone and say, is this Nicole Reyes? Yes, this is. So they already have hello. Yes, this is. And now they can go out and clone my voice. The example that I use here is a more sophisticated phishing email from Netflix. So again, going back to that prep work that they're doing from a scam perspective, they have targeted Gary, but not only have they targeted Gary, they know that Gary has an interaction or has a relationship with Netflix. They also, maybe from reviewing his emails, reviewing his online banking trial promotion, something, they've also gathered that he's got a promotion that is ending. So this is real life situations that could be happening to Gary. And so through their preparation and their due diligence, they've identified and been able to tweak this specific message to make it more applicable to Gary and more familiar, more of a friendly feeling. And so again, just trust us, Gary, and click on this link to review your changes. And so there's been an exponential increase in these type of attempts, not only in sophistication, but again, how they can execute them at scale. And so I'll just reference again back to the 3.4 billion emails that are sent globally every day. I always like to share this picture as well. This one it's a little old. It's actually from a gentleman's TikTok from 2022, I believe, but I sourced him here, Miles Fisher. What I like to talk about here is the rise in effectiveness of phishing scams. It's one of the main reasons that we're seeing an uptick in account takeover type fraud. As of today, more than 1 in 5 U.S. victims have been identified as a victim of account takeover type accounts or type fraud, and the impact can be significant. It averages about $12,000 in loss per victim. So each case was about $12,000 in average from an industry global perspective. Deep fake technology, as I've been talking about the sophistication and with the rise of AI, it's been able to evolve different schemes and tactics. Deep fake technology is estimated to impact $10 billion in fraud in 2025. They're saying 96% of deep fakes are used for malicious content, because it is all fun and games to make yourself look like Tom Cruise so easily. But in reality, why would you need to do that? What are some reasons that you would really need to go this far to create a deep fake? And so impersonation of legitimate account holders, such as you and me, are getting even easier to democratize with the deep fake technology. Again, this creator, Miles Fisher, he took this Tom Cruise deep fake and created a video that walks you through it. It took many hours to craft his video in 2022, but he also used open source. So he used the Deepface Lab algorithm, which is open source AI. So again, enabling those DIY users. There is some good news, though, as well, as far as being able to detect and equip yourself or educate yourself on how to detect these deep fakes. So a shout out to MIT. MIT has created a really fun way to identify and educate yourself on deep fake detection. And so I provided that URL here for those of you that are interested. Synthetic ID. So synthetic ID is another form of fake identity. And so this is really, again, advanced with the use of AI. There's been a 300% surge just in the United States. Synthetic ID is interesting because you're really taking a combination of often fake identities and then combining it with some real personal identifiable information to then create a third party, if you will, or a third identity. Just some stats real quick. AI conversations and deep fake conversations have increased 644% in 2024. So again, why I think this is really significant to call out is because this represents the number of users that are on, forums, chat sites, things like that, like Reddit, other different sites, to try to talk about how would I use AI or how would I use deepfake to commit fraud. And so conversations of that nature increasing by almost 700% in 1 year is very much cause for alarm. I want to call out the scams most impacted by AI and deep fake. So just quickly, a representation here that the penetration rate on these type of scams and the way they use AI or they use deep fakes really have increased the success that fraudsters or criminals have been able to gain by these type of attacks. And that top one there, the 100% attacks are that business email compromises. So again, going after businesses and trying to imposter like you are maybe an employee at that organization, things like that. That's an example of a BEC attack. Oh, I went backwards, sorry. So how to battle back? I'm very much an optimistic person by nature, so I really don't like to present all of this doom and gloom, but it is great education awareness, but without giving some opportunities and giving some perspective on how do we fight back? What can I do to empower myself or to equip myself to be able to fight against these type of things? And so I've come up with the secret fraud fighting sauce on protecting myself or yourself. And so I'll walk through some of these top components today. Really, the first one is verify before action. So this is really kind of, a spin on stop and think before you react. Be wary of any unsolicited financial requests or any unsolicited correspondence from somebody that you don't know, especially somebody that you have not done an engagement with. Again, fraudsters are doing their prep work, but they're also, just trying to throw some wide nets out and see how many fish they can get. So it's oftentimes there are still tactics that are happening that do look very much like something suspicious and a red flag. All the way down to, ensuring that your website that you're on is secure by that HTTPS security sign. The second one is educate yourself and others. Hopefully I've provided some ways to educate yourself today and got you thinking about some of the interactions that would or would not take place by your financial institution and your credit union. But be wary of common scams and their tactics and regularly review your money to make sure you're protected. Also, be wary of what you're sharing online. It is fun to get those social media quizzes and see what your friend's favorite food is and things like that, but they're also asking questions that may match your security questions that you truly use to create password or validate your authenticity with your financial institutions. Also, apps that ask you to check in are showing that you're not home. And these AI generators that are turning you into the next Disney princess or what Disney princess would you have been, also store that selfie of your information and can be used in a malicious manner. So just be aware of what you share online and why. And then watch for red flags. Watch for communications that, again, go on your sense of urgency or maybe just don't seem right. You get a text message, but it's sent to 10 other people in a group chat and none of the phone numbers you're aware of, things like that. All the way down to identifying and being able to look for deep fakes. So check for impersonations in images and videos. Check out that MIT URL I provided. Listen to tone and word choice to try to distinguish anything that you can to differentiate this from who you really are speaking with, especially if they're trying to mimic one of your family members. Which in that instance, it's also a good idea to create a secret word or phrase with your family that you guys can use to identify each other. And lastly, invest in security. So keep your good technology hygiene. Always keep your phone, your computers up to date and backed up with your data as often. So make sure that you're shutting your phone off, restarting it once a while, and certainly go through those technology company software updates that come in as requirements on your phone. Also, change any compromised passwords. If you identify that your password is compromised, make sure that you change it in any application that you use, not just the one that alerted you it may have had a compromise event. I want to leave you with some consumer protection resources. So there are many, many resources out there that can help you not only educate, but also identify and report scams. So it's very important that we're reporting this information as well, so that we're getting that feedback loop, not only to other organizations, but to the government also, to understand and really wrap our hands around what significant problem this is, so that we can take really tangible action to fight this fight. Because again, we are all in this fraud fight together. Thank you.
Nicole, that was amazing. Thank you for all of the valuable information. I do encourage everybody, if you do have questions, put them in the question or the Q&A section inbox to the lower right. Nicole will take them if she's able to towards in a couple of minutes, towards the end of the presentation. I also want to encourage, Nicole spoke about this a lot, make sure that if there's ever a sense of urgency, do not get scared, do not feel the need to click right away, right? Because of that explanation of the Trojan horse, once you let them into your home, right, then they can explore anything and everything. And I'll give an example, which was, my mother texts me every day. She's 87. She was so afraid because they said they were going to give her a fine because if she had a traffic violation. Very nervous, right? And I said, well, Mom, you don't drive, so take the step back. How could you have a traffic violation? Take the step back, breathe. Don't click it. You don't know what it is. You're not expecting it. If they're threatening you, it's more than likely a scam. I also encourage you, for credit union members, to enable your debit card control. So for your debit card, go into online banking, enable that. That way you see the real-time transactions and you can react immediately. Also, we have additional fraud content on our website. So go to our website, idbglobalfcu.org, and on the top under search, you can do fraud, and there's a whole page of different tabs of all types of frauds that you can educate yourself with. And then we're also making sure that we have members to ask questions. Don't get frustrated. Don't think we're asking too much. We want to make sure that we are protecting you each and every day and that you are the person talking to us. So we are very happy to be with you, but we also want to protect you. I'm going to go, Nicole, you want to go down and look and see if there's any questions? I do want to reemphasize that we do have the recording and that you will get an email with the recording after this event. Nicole, are you okay if we share the slides as well?
Yeah, that's fine.
Always share them separately. Can ask you online. Perfect. So we can share those slides as well, and we'll make sure everybody gets a copy of them. That's all I had. Nicole, do you see any questions?
We do have a question, Marilyn. One gentleman is asking, I don't have online banking, so is my account less likely to be compromised? And you're definitely less susceptible to certain types of tactics. So if you don't have an online banking account, that is one avenue that they may not be able to reach out, obviously, and get some more information. However, they will then find other ways to try to entice you. So they may just go the traditional route of calling you on the phone or sending you a text message. And then when they get your information, they may take a scam route to monetize and for fraudulent gain in a manner that doesn't involve an online banking. So it does it does remove you obviously from one of those avenues, but again, fraudsters are throwing so many different nets out there to see what they can catch that they would likely try a different tactic. But great question.
Like I said, there's security threats, identity theft, they can go so many different ways. So keep your password safe and secure at all times. I'm going to pause for 1 second. I don't think there's any more questions, but please come and visit us at our new branch. We also have a wide variety of content for our webinars throughout the rest of the year. So take a look at our website, and once the availability to register is there, you can definitely register for those. And come and visit us. Call us. We're always here for you. Anything else, Nicole? Parting words?
No, thank you guys so much for having me. And again, just, you guys know yourselves best. So just be diligent and be wary. So just, again, it's safe to interact online. It's an exciting, innovative thing that we're doing, but, just make sure that you're doing your diligence and protecting yourself. Thank you guys for having me today, Marilyn.
Excellent. Everyone, thank you.